We are live. Howdy, everybody. Aaron Boster here, and thank you for learning about MS with me. It is St. Patrick's Day at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The entire country, in fact, most of the globe is quarantined, and I missed you guys, and I wanted to jump online and spend at least an hour of this special holiday quarantined with you. I'm going to give a moment for people to jump online. There's 69 of us already. That's freaking awesome. As you jump online, as always, please share with me where you're calling in from. I absolutely adore this growing global online village, and I love reading where the villagers are coming from. Very, very cool. So please make sure to say hello, howdy, hi, and tell me where you're coming from. Must Stop MS is in the house. Randy, how are you, my friend? For those of you that are not familiar, Must Stop MS is an amazing patient advocate, a gentleman who on Twitter has created an entire online community, Chat MS. That just happened last night. It's once every week. And if you haven't participated in one of his Twitter chats, I strongly encourage you to do so. There's lots of friends jumping online. There's 112 of us. It is St. Patrick's Day, and I am prepared with a little St. Patrick's Day apple juice. And so we will have a couple toasts this evening. This will be the first one. Look at all these people getting online. There's 121 of us tonight. This is absolutely fantastic. There is a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in my own personal life. We have launched the Boster Center for Multiple Sclerosis. We actually saw our first patient ever in the clinic space this afternoon. We're not officially opening up to patients until Thursday, but because of a patient's specific situation, we saw them today. It was such a joy after practicing MSology for 15 years to see a patient in the Boster Center. It filled my heart, and I got tearful during the visit. It was really, really emotional. I just left the clinic. I just got home just in time to set up the camera and the lights, and boy, it was an exciting day for me. I'm looking online. Diane is teasing me about my apple juice. There's nothing wrong with a little apple juice on St. Patrick's Day. If you're inclined, I encourage you to have one as well. Now, there's 131 of us online. There's 24 thumbs up. If you like what we're doing right now, if you like the idea of spending an hour or so of St. Patrick's Day evening while we're quarantined and can't go outside together in this global online village, give it a thumbs up. It means a lot to me. I have not planned a table of contents for today's discussion. Oftentimes when I sit down with you guys, I have a couple ideas mapped out. And so I thought instead we would kind of do this together. Andrea Martin says, where can I buy that sweatshirt? If you go to our website, which is bosterms.com, under the support tab, there's a bunch of merchandise and you can get these sweatshirts. So check that out. You can go to our website, bosterms.com. In fact, I'll even type that in here. What the hey, bosterms.com. I see Darla is online. Darla, how are you? It's great to see you. Maggie May is online. What's up, lady? Joyce Anderson is online. There's a bunch of wonderful people. Connie is here. Hey, Connie Walls, how are you? This is really absolutely superb and fantastic. I have not planned topics for today's discussion. Obviously, there are some very, very germane topics that are affecting most of the world right now, things such as COVID-19. On my channel, I have made a series of videos trying to help update people about COVID-19, specifically as it relates to folks impacted by MS. I've talked about the disease-modifying therapies and how they may impact a given person's risk to clear the virus. And if that is a topic for conversation tonight, we most certainly can have that conversation. Otherwise, anything is fair game. You want to ask me questions about multiple sclerosis or neuroimmunology, happy to do so. If you want to ask questions about the Boster Center or what's going on in my home life, I'm happy to field those too. Let's turn to the questions here. John is on the line. Top of the day to you as well, John. It's great to see you, my friend. Sherry is online. And so Sherry's asking the very first question of the night, Ocrevus effect on teeth. So I've used a lot of ocrelizumab. I was one of the clinical trial investigators that studied the drug leading to its FDA approval. We were one of the first ones. We were actually the first in the world to infuse. And I've treated a lot of people with ocrelizumab. I personally have not learned about any teeth-related phenomenon. I've never seen an increase in dental caries or gingival hyperplasia or any of these kind of things associated with Ocrevus. To the 159 people that have jumped online with me, have any of you noticed any teeth issues with Ocrevus? Type in your answer. I'm sure that we would all like to hear about it. What else is cooking here? I've got Laura is online. Laura K., how are you doing? Just feeling the love in our MS community. Thanks for gathering. Laura is an amazing MS advocate, a fantastic dynamo. She is a consummate blogger and really does a bang-up job of bringing people together and advocating for people with MS, and a big focus of advocating for the patient's voice being heard in the context of research. Laura has helped me a great deal. Any of you that come to my clinic and sit in our chairs, Laura guided me and taught me about the right height and firmness of a chair. I want to thank you for that, Laura. It is great to see you tonight, and I hope that you might enjoy a bit of apple juice on St. Patty's Day as well. Let's see who else is gathered online, guys. A lot of questions here. Dr. Boster is accepting new patients, but I'm not sure how he can address how to be seen. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what AJHR is saying here. And Darlo's being kind and says, don't forget to like the videos. Trudy is going to be coming to see me in May, and that is absolutely fantastic. Trudy, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to show you around the brand new center. It's really a joy to be in the space. It makes me feel super duper awesome. Let's look for some other questions. So folks, today we're discussing friends recommending them to boost the immune system right now. You know, there's a lot of questions that I'm seeing related to MS and to self-distancing and self-isolating. So show of hands by giving a thumbs up. Would you like to start this evening's conversation talking about COVID-19, about the novel coronavirus and the state of affairs that we find ourselves? So if that sounds like something that you want, give a thumbs up. Let me know if that's a topic that we're going to discuss right now. So Diane Kramer says, we're keeping up with our physical activity while in isolation. Any ideas about activities to pick up? Yes. So Diane brings up a great suggestion. Linda, Carla, Dana, Kimberly, Sherry are all giving thumbs up. Okay, it looks like maybe the better part of Valor is to talk a little bit about COVID-19. I've also got my grog here, and I'm not going to make you guys guess tonight. There's water in my grog cup. I enjoy a bit of water when I'm drinking apple juice. All right, guys, let's talk about COVID-19. Now, anything I'm saying right now, if you'd like to hear more about it, I have an entire playlist on my channel where I've made about 5 or 6 videos about coronavirus. And so if you want to hear any of this again, definitely check those things out. I'm going to not be looking at the questions while I'm talking about COVID-19. So if you hold your questions until I'm done with this small didactic portion, that way I don't miss them. And of course, as you already know, if I don't get to your question on the live stream, don't sweat that. I go through all the questions and I answer them in upcoming videos or in future live streams. So I will definitely address your question. But let's talk about COVID-19 right now. So when we think about flu season, or we talk about, oh, I have the flu, we're typically talking about influenza or influenza A. And influenza is a virus that gives people the flu. And influenza has a season. It peaks during the winter months and tends to go away during the summer months. And although it's not talked about very much, influenza is fatal. There are people that die every year from influenza. Typically, folks that are a bit older or folks that are critically ill or ill. Now, influenza is not the only infection, not the only virus that can cause cold-like symptoms. In fact, there are a bunch of other viruses that can cause a human being to experience flu-like symptoms. And one large family of viruses is the coronavirus family. So the coronavirus family, coronaviruses are these RNA viruses, and there's a bunch of them. There's hundreds of different coronaviruses. There are some coronaviruses that only infect humans, and they can cause people typically to get colds. And there are different strains of viruses, coronaviruses, that only infect animals. So there's coronaviruses that only infect dogs, there's coronaviruses that only infect bats, and they don't really bother humans. What we believe, unfortunately, has happened is that a coronavirus that only infects bats jumped species. So it went from the bat into the human, and it figured out a way to infect the human. And that's called a zoonotic infection. And this novel coronavirus is something that the human immune system is not used to seeing. We didn't evolutionarily evolve to handle this novel coronavirus. And this novel coronavirus has created quite a situation globally. It was first identified, as you're well aware, in Wuhan, China, and it is now spread to multiple other countries, including the United States, including all throughout Europe. The coronavirus typically presents like a cold. People get fever, they get kind of malaise and feel fatigued, they get short of breath, they have issues with coughing. And for 80% of the people infected by coronavirus, they just have a cold and then it goes away and they clear the virus. About 15% of people impacted by the virus need medical attention to get through it. So they're not just going to weather the storm at home. And about 5% need intensive care. And the fatality rates of coronavirus appear to be higher than that of the mortality rates associated with flu. So more people are dying, which is obviously horrible. Now, not all people have the same risk of having a severe infection. The people that tend to have a higher degree of risk are folks that are over the age of 60. And in fact, every decade above 60, the risk goes way up. So 70-year-olds, it goes way up, and 80-year-olds goes way, way up. Also, people that have chronic comorbid conditions, so people that have heart disease, people that have lung conditions, people with diabetes and things of that sort have an increased risk of not catching the virus, but of having a severe illness if they contract COVID-19. Now, it's also relevant to point out that people that have suppressed immune responses, people that have a low white blood cell count, for example, patients with cancer receiving chemotherapy, or people with multiple sclerosis receiving disease-modifying therapies that can suppress the white blood cell count, they may be at increased risk of having a severe infection if they contract COVID-19. Apple juice break. Now, the fact that a person has multiple sclerosis does not increase the risk to get the virus. So that person's risk to contract the virus is the same as my risk or my family's risk. It's not higher because they have MS. And having MS in and of itself does not increase the risk of having severe disease. It doesn't make it harder to clear the disease. But some of the MS medicines that we take that suppress our immune response most certainly can cause a situation in an individual where it's harder to clear the virus and they may have a more severe disease. And so I've talked on many of my recent YouTube videos about specifics about COVID-19, MS, and specific disease-modifying therapies. And I'll run through them very, very quickly. I see Stuart Schlossman has jumped online. Stuart, it's great to see you. I hope that you're doing well, my friend. And Stuart, we're talking about COVID-19. We're talking about the risks to people impacted by MS. And I just finished sharing that various disease-modifying therapies may make a given individual's time managing the virus, trying to clear the virus, harder. But what I really want to focus on are the things that we can do, to decrease our risk of contracting the virus, right? So I'm fond of saying, if you don't come in contact with HIV-tainted fluid, you can't get AIDS. And if you don't come in contact with someone that has COVID-19, you can't get COVID-19. And so there needs to be a really concerted international effort to minimize exposure to the virus. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about how the hey we do that. And I want to talk about why we should do that. So first off, there's a lot of behaviors that we can adopt which will decrease our risk of contracting the virus and will decrease our risk of spreading the virus. So what are they? Number one, wash your hands. wash your hands. You got to wash your hands, folks. This is a virus that we get predominantly because somebody sneezed or coughed, and then there's virus on the surface of things. And then we touch the surface, and then we touch our face, and we introduce virus into our face. It gets into the membranes of our mouth or our nose or our eyes. And so if you wash your hands, then you are removing virus from your hands. And then when you touch your face, you're not going to give yourself virus. You should wash your hands after you go to the bathroom. And some people that are on this live stream think, well, duh, of course you should. But I'll be very honest with you. Not everybody washes their hands after they go to the bathroom. And right now, we need to be doing that. So today, when you go to the bathroom, I really, really need you to wash your hands. Also, before you eat a meal, wash your hands. And I have to be honest with you that there are many times that I sit down to eat and I don't wash my hands beforehand. And I am working to change that behavior because I need to wash my hands before I eat a meal. Also, if you cough or sneeze, achoo, you just got virus on your hands, or you potentially got virus on your hands. So you want to wash your hands after coughing or sneezing. Now, there's two ways to wash your hands, the old school way and the new school way. The old school way is to use soap and water. And there ain't nothing wrong with using soap and water, but you have to wash your hands for 20 seconds. So that's a really long time to have to wash. So let's look at that together. I've got a timer on the screen here, and I'm going to take a sip of apple juice, and then I'm going to practice pretending to wash my hands for 20 seconds. All right, you ready? And the way that I'm going to remember to do that is I'm going to sing a song for 20 seconds. And today we're going to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, starting now. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. I need to sing a few more seconds so I can get to 20 seconds. There we go. All right. So you have learned two things. Number one, I should never, ever sing in public. Number two, 20 seconds is a really long time. And you literally have to sit there and scrub your hands. Now, I've paid attention in bathrooms, particularly in airports. And if a guy washes his hands after he goes to the John, he typically does it in about 5 seconds. Get the hands wet, get the hands soapy, rinse them off, get out of there. And that's not adequate. You really do need to wash your hands for 20 seconds. Now, that's the old school way of washing hands, and it's a very effective way. The new school way is to use a disinfectant, all right, like a hand sanitizer, right? So Purell makes hand sanitizers. Lots of other people make hand sanitizers. And you want a hand sanitizer that's 60% alcohol or more. And so if you have hand sanitizer, it's an easy way to squirt it and rub it on your hands, and then the alcohol will kill the virus on your hands. I'll tell you an interesting tidbit. I just launched a MS Center, all right, so the Boster Center. And obviously, we want to have hand sanitizer. Well, guess what? We can't find hand sanitizer. I've partnered with several manufacturers who supply us with like medical supplies, and they're all out. It's all in back order. And so thank goodness my family and the families of the people I work with have brought hand sanitizer to the clinic because we don't have any. And that's pretty crazy. I did learn, however, that you can make hand sanitizer, which is kind of cool. And maybe this weekend, I'm going to make batches of hand sanitizer. There's 2 ingredients. Isopropyl alcohol, which is rubbing alcohol, and you can still buy that in the store, and aloe vera. So like the green aloe vera for sunburns, and you mix it together. You want to have 60% alcohol, and that makes hand sanitizer. So I might, as a project, make hand sanitizer this weekend so that I have an ample amount for my own clinic. Now, washing your hands is one way to help prevent contracting the virus, but there's many other ways. Another thing that I want you to consider doing is disinfecting surfaces that are frequently touched. So if you think about like your computer keyboard, or if you think about the petri dish of a cell phone, I mean, these things touch your face. We stick them in the pocket. We drop it on the floor. We pick it back up. We put it back on our face. I mean, this is a great carrier of virus. And so sanitizing the surface is a really, really good idea. So my friend Susan just texted me and said, I have a request. Sing a song other than Twinkle Twinkle. Susan, I promise I won't sing any more Twinkle Twinkle. And so getting a wet wipe and sanitizing surfaces that you frequently touch is a really good idea. And again, why? Because someone sneezed or coughed and they spread particles of virus on the surface. And so if you touch it and then touch your face, you're going to give yourself a risk of infection. And so by sanitizing it, that's a really good idea. A third pro tip is to not touch your face. Now, if you've noticed as I've been talking to you, I'm touching my face. I'm adjusting my glasses. I'm wiping my sweat. I keep touching my face. And the human being touches their face multiple times a minute. And so the way that we think we get this virus is you touch the surface and then you touch your face. So if you can work to stop touching your face, that'll actually help a lot. But there's more things we can do. The biggest one that I think that we need to consider is something called social distancing. So what the hey is social distancing? Well, being in contact with someone that has COVID-19 can give you COVID-19. And when I say contact, I mean within 6 feet. So it's very hard to be in a public space and not be within 6 feet of anybody. Typically, social norms are such that we're a lot closer than just being, 6 feet away. And so if you can distance yourself socially, then you limit your exposure to people that might have virus, and you can limit viral transmission in the community. Think about if you went to see a UFC mixed martial arts fight, all right? So you're in Mandalay Bay, and there are 100,000 people gathered in this giant arena, and they're all packed in like sardines. Well, if 2 people have COVID-19 and they cough, they're going to spread virus everywhere. And so if you instead don't go to see the fight, but you watch it on pay-per-view and you're at home, you have de-risked the situation. Now, I live in the great state of Ohio, and our Governor DeWine very wisely has closed schools, restaurants, gymnasiums. There's a lot of things that have closed down. And the reason I believe that the governor is doing that is to limit people getting together in groups. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to lock yourself in your house and board up all your doors with boards and hide. But what it does mean is it's not the time to be out in public. Because the more people you interact with, the more likely it is that you can pass along infection. So social distancing is a really, really good idea. Now, just to finish my thought, a couple other things. If you're sick, you have a fever, don't go to work. Doctors are notorious for going to work sick. And I hate to tell you this, but we're actually taught to go to work sick. We're taught culturally that if you're sick and you don't work, then you're weak. And that only strong residents and strong doctors go to work even though they're feeling sick. And that's actually kind of stupid. And right now in particular, if you're ill, don't go into work. Because if you're ill and you happen to have COVID-19 and you cough it on somebody, you're going to spread it around. Whereas if you stay at home, then you're not going to pass that along. And so that's a really important point. Now, I want to talk a little bit about masks because, people might think, well, if I'm at risk, then I'm going to put a mask on. And if you've been diagnosed with COVID-19, so you've had a test and you're positive and you're going to go in public because you have to go to the doctor's office or go do something, then you want to put a mask on. But you're not putting on a mask to help yourself. You're putting on a mask to prevent you from coughing on somebody else or coughing on a surface and spreading virus. That's why someone who's positive wears a mask. You wearing a mask and not being infected is actually counterintuitive because at first blush you might say, oh, well, that's a protective measure, but it's not, because the masks that you buy at the store have not been professionally fit to your face, and they're not going to fit properly, and you're going to constantly be adjusting the mask. And then you want to drink some apple juice, so you take the mask down, drink some apple juice and put the mask back on. Or, you want to take a phone call, so you take the mask off and put the mask back on. And what you end up doing is you end up touching your face more than you would have if you weren't wearing a mask. And so it's not a best recommendation to wear a mask these days. Now, that is a quick skinny on COVID-19. And Stephanie C is in the house, and she writes, if you work when you're sick, ... All right. I want to take a look and see if there's any questions or comments so far. One of the things that I'm more than happy to discuss, if you guys are interested, is going again through specifics of various disease-modifying therapies. So give me a show of thumbs up if you would like me to talk a little bit about the various disease-modifying. I've certainly done that several times on other videos, but I'm very happy to go over it tonight if people would like to hear about that during St. Patrick's Day. So John says yes. He's giving me a thumbs up. Stephanie is suggesting that we talk about Lemtrada. I've got Sherry and Jamie who are saying, okay, all right. So there's plenty of people out there that would like to hear a discussion about the various disease-modifying therapies. So let's do that now. This is really good apple juice. My wife buys the best apple juice. That's good stuff. All right, so let's talk about disease-modifying therapies. And I'm going to discuss them from the lowest risk, in my opinion, to the highest risk, in my opinion. And I want to stress that this is just my opinion, all right? So I'm a board-certified neurologist, and I'm a neuroimmunologist, and I'm an MS specialist. That's what I do for a living. But I have not had any patients with COVID-19. Right? And we don't have data where we have clinical trial studies. So where am I getting my information from? I'm getting my information from a couple sources. I'm getting my information from the CDC website. I'm getting my information from the WHO website. I'm getting some information from my friend Gavin Giovannoni, who I respect a lot and really appreciate his point of view. And I'm getting information from my understanding of how the MS drugs work, from the clinical trials that led to their FDA approval and the other literature supporting them. So I'm piecing together information the best that I can. And it doesn't make me right, it just makes me really opinionated. But I would love to share with you my impressions of what I think about these MS medicines. So I'm gonna start with the least risky. So I think that the least risky MS medicines as it relates to a severe COVID-19 infection are the injections. Now, the injections, these are beta interferon products like Plegridy and Avonex and Extavia and Betaseron and Rebif, and Copaxone, glutamer acetate. Those injections do not suppress the immune response. Those injections do not drop your white blood cell count. And so if you have MS and you're taking one of those medicines, I do not think that you're at increased risk of a severe infection. I don't. And they also, as you're well aware, are not my favorite medicines for MS because I don't feel that the efficacy to manage the disease is adequate. I think that they're mildly effective MS medicines, but they are also unlikely to increase a given individual's risk for COVID-19. So the next drug I want to talk about as we go up the list is teriflunomide or Aubagio. So Aubagio is a once-a-day pill approved for MS. And it is not a very, very efficacious medicine as it relates to relapses or gadolinium-enhanced MRI. It's a good, not great medicine in that regard. There are some things I like very much about Aubagio, like its ability to slow brain volume loss and slow disability progression. And it works not by suppressing white blood cells. It works in a cytostatic. Cytostatic is a doctor word that means it makes the cells play the freeze game, but it doesn't kill them. And it should not increase the risk of having a severe COVID-19 infection. In fact, and I find this really fascinating, there are some very interesting viral or antiviral properties of Aubagio. It appears in some clinical studies that Aubagio has antiviral properties. Now, that's just a comment, and I'm very curious about how someone would fare with Aubagio, because they might actually fare better, but we don't know that. It's just conjecture. So then we get into the rest of the pills, the S1P1 receptor modulators. And I see Must Stop MS Now has asked a couple times about Gilenya, which is one of the S1P1 receptor modulators. There's Gilenya, there's Mayzent, that's another one of the S1P1 receptor modulators. There's also several of these medicines that are in clinical testing. There's drugs like ozanimod and ponesimod. And all of these pills, they work by moving about 80% of your white blood cells out of your bloodstream into your lymph nodes. So it sequesters these white blood cells, which is a highly effective way of treating MS. And then the question is does it increase the risk of infection? So my opinion is that in the clinical trials, these medicines were shown to increase the risk of upper respiratory tract infections. And as such, if you're taking Gilenya, there might be a slight increased risk of a severe COVID-19 infection compared to if you weren't on it. But this is not proven. And one of the very interesting observations that's been made is that they're considering using Gilenya to help people recover from an infection like COVID-19. And you might say, wait a second, Aaron, doesn't that seem exactly opposite to what you just said? Well, we believe that when someone has lung problems from COVID-19, that it's because of the immune response in the lungs. And so I can understand the idea of trying to quell the overly active immune response, but I personally would not use Gilenya to try to do that. I personally would be much more interested in using something like a steroid. So we don't know the answer. Now, if you're on Gilenya and now you're quarantined in your house and you've got this COVID-19 concern, you might think, well, I'm going to stop my Gilenya, and I do not want you to do that. Don't stop your Gilenya, all right? So it would be a bad idea to cold turkey stop your medicine for two reasons. Reason number one is you started Gilenya for a reason. You started Gilenya because you have MS and because we're trying to protect your brain and your spinal cord from multiple sclerosis attacking it. And we don't want to just stop it. But the second reason is that there have been some cases of a rebound phenomenon when you stop Gilenya. So someone stops Gilenya and then they have a rebound of their MS disease activity. It's not very common, but it can happen. And so if you have MS and you're taking Gilenya or Mayzent and you're concerned, I want you to call your MS provider, all right? Do not stop your medicine cold turkey. I want you to call your MS provider and talk to them about what's the best course of action. And we have to weigh the risk and the benefit, all right? So the benefit is to protect your brain against your immune system attacking it. The risk is, could you have a worse disease course if you catch COVID-19? And then, of course, we have to think about what are your individual risks. Do you work as an ICU nurse, or are you traveling a lot? Are you over 60? Do you have comorbid diabetes? We have to look at all these different concerns as we try to come up with the best advice for you. So there are other pills. The next pill that I would like to talk about is Cladribine. So Cladribine, which is trade named in the United States Mavenclad, is a form of immunosuppression that knocks down the B and the T cells. And it doesn't do it for very long, but it still does it for several months. And so this would be a concerning medicine. If you had just taken Mavenclad, your immune system is going to be suppressed for a period of time. If you took Mavenclad 3 or 4 years ago, your immune system has dropped down and then it's come back up and now it's normalized. It's reconstituted. So if you've taken Mavenclad 3 or 4 years ago, I'm very not worried about you. But if you took Mavenclad last month, then you are in the category of risk where if you were to contract COVID-19, it might be a more severe infection. And Mavenclad is one of those medicines where if you had taken Mavenclad recently, you might really want to practice social distancing, even a bit of social isolation, because you really don't want to come in contact with virus. Now, if we move away from the shots, away from the pills, into the MS disease-modifying therapies, the injections, or the infusions, excuse me, that's what happens when you drink apple juice. Then there's three medicines. And the least risky of the three, in my opinion, is Tysabri, or natalizumab. Tysabri is a once-a-month infusion, and what it does is it turns the blood-brain barrier into the Great Wall of China so that cells can't get through. And the peripheral immune system is normal. So if you have exposure to an infection, your peripheral immune system can fight it off the way that it's always fought off infections, and it's not impaired. Well, that's very, very important. And that means that you're probably in very good standing to be able to clear the virus. I do want to point out a caveat that if the infection entered the brain, your brain does not have a normal immunosurveillance on Tysabri. And you might, in fact, be in a very serious situation if the infection entered into the brain. So I'll throw that out there. Now, the last two medicines are amongst my most favorite as it relates to treating MS. One is ocrelizumab or Ocrevus, a B cell killer.
And then the other one is Lemtrada or alemtuzumab. Now, Ocrevus is an interesting medicine. It's an immunosuppressant. But it only suppresses adult B cells. It doesn't affect the innate immune system, and it doesn't affect the T cells. And so as such, it's going to increase the risk in that it'll lower your white blood cell count. But this is an important point. In order to fight a virus, you need T cells. And Ocrevus doesn't affect T cells. It's only affected B cells. And so theoretically, even though it's a form of immunosuppression, it might not be that bad because it's not affecting the T cell compartment. Now, I have had many patients who are needing their next dose of ocrelizumab, and we have had to game out together the risk profile of that given individual. We're talking about people that are hospitalists in hospitals, or they're NICU nurses in pediatric ICUs, or they're truck drivers, or a myriad of different professions. And with each individual case, we have to kind of think about their profession, their travel, their age, their comorbid conditions, and what's going on with their Ocrevus, meaning the timing. Because you're going to be less at risk of COVID-19 just before your next infusion as compared to just after your last infusion. You're going to be at higher risk right after you're dosed. And so that's a factor. And in some people, we might choose to wait a month or two to try to get through this period of pandemic and then infuse them. Other people, we've decided that the better thing to do is to actually treat them now because we don't want to allow their MS to become overly active. Now, the last drug to talk about is Lemtrada. You know, I didn't talk about Tecfidera and Vumerity. I'm sorry, I didn't leave them out on purpose. I just forgot. So let me jump back and talk about the two pills, Tecfidera or dimethyl fumarate, and Vumerity, which is diroximel fumarate. So forgive me for going out of order. So these two pills do not work by suppressing the immune response. So most people taking Tecfidera or taking Vumerity should not have a problem in clearing virus. They should not have a problem of a severe viral illness if they get COVID-19. But about 15 to 21% of people that take these medicines suppress their white blood cell count. They're not supposed to, but they do. They have a suppressed white blood cell count. And if you are one of the people taking Tecfidera or Vumerity, and you have a suppressed white blood cell count, you would potentially be at increased risk. And so how do you know if that's you? Well, you call your doctor and you talk to them. All right, so I'm sorry I went out of order. Let me jump back to Lemtrada. That was the last of the infusions that I was hopeful to talk about. So talking about Lemtrada. Lemtrada is one of the most effective medicines to treat MS. I really like Lemtrada in the right patient. It's a great drug, but it knocks down adult B and T cells, and they stay down for quite a while. You give 5 days, you wait a year, and you give 3 days. So right before your second dose, your white blood cells have started to come back up, and then you smack them back down. And so after a course of Lemtrada, you're going to be immunosuppressed. And you're going to be that way for about the better part of a year. I mean, at least a good 6 months. And then you're going to slowly repopulate your cells. So when you're looking at the risk of COVID-19 as it relates to someone being treated with Lemtrada, it has everything to do with how long ago were you dosed. So if you got Lemtrada in 2016 and 2017, and now we're in 2020, you're probably not at risk. You've probably reconstituted all of your white blood cells, and you're cool in the game. If you got Lemtrada last week and you've knocked down your white blood cells, you, like if you had cladribine, are in a category of risk where you would really want to socially isolate and avoid risk of contracting the infection. And so it has everything to do with the timing of when you were last treated with Lemtrada or alemtuzumab to sort out your risk profile. So that's a quick skinny. If you'd like to hear more about COVID-19 and MS, or more about COVID-19, MS, and disease-modifying therapies, check out my playlist on my channel where I have a bunch of videos specifically on that topic. But I did want to kind of talk about it today. Now, let's do a toast to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and then maybe I can answer some questions. So I didn't prepare a toast. I have several toasts that are completely inappropriate for a public forum. So instead, I simply want to wish health and happiness to you and yours. On this day and every day, may you and the ones you love be healthy and happy. God bless. And while we're at it, let me share with you why I tap my glass when I make a toast. So in my world, in my life, in my culture, celebrating together and making a toast is a joyous and happy occasion. It's a moment in time when we celebrate. And so I love to celebrate with friends and family, and I love to celebrate with you. But I also want to recall that there are people that can't celebrate with us any longer. And so at my happiest time, I want to remember those people. And I'm thinking in my own personal life of my Uncle Mark, who's passed away. I'm thinking of my grandparents who passed away. I'm thinking of friends that I've lost throughout the years. And so when I toast at my happiest moment, I tap my glass on the ground or on the table to remind me of those people that can't be with us. And so that's something I've done for a very, very long time. And it helps ground me and helps remind me of things that are important. God bless you. All right, let's take a look at some questions and see what's kind of rocking tonight. What kind of questions do we have? So Chanel writes, is it safe to get an infusion with virus going around? Well, Chanel, I just spent, 20, 30 minutes talking about the various infusions. And so I think that in order to answer that question, we have to know, where do you live? Do you live in Korea or Japan or in Italy? Or do you live in the middle of the Midwest where there's very little virus? How old are you? Are you over 60 or are you under 60? Because being over 60 is an independent risk factor. What kind of job do you have? Are you a preschool teacher and little munchkins are coughing in your face all day long? Or do you work in a factory and nobody is near you and you're at very low risk? Which infusion are you talking about? Are you talking about Lemtrada, which you just got, or Lemtrada that you got 3 years ago? Are you talking about ocrelizumab, or are you talking about Tysabri? There's a lot of factors involved that will help guide us in answering that question. The punchline is that you need to ask your doctor. You need to call your MS provider and say, hey, is this safe for me? And that's a question that I've been fielding a lot. I wish you the very best of luck. All right, question. Please discuss smoldering MS. So Angela, I adore you and I adore your family. And that's not a question. I would like to talk about smoldering MS. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to hold off on discussing that tonight. I'm going to make an entire video or live stream just dedicated to the concept of smoldering MS. This is a concept that Gavin Giovannoni, a friend of mine at Bart's MS in London, has been discussing for years and years. Many other MS-ologists have been discussing smoldering MS using different names. My mentor, Dr. Omar Khan, used to talk about it a lot. And so I'm going to do an entire focus on just that. I'm not going to talk about it tonight because it's going to go on for too long. And to be honest with you, Angela, I want to do a little preparation because I want to be able to share a lot of those concepts with you in a very concise fashion. So we will do a redo of tonight in the very near future, and I will discuss smoldering MS. And thank you for bringing that up. All right. So Ernie Joel says that Ernie wants a Boster Center hoodie. So we don't have hoodies yet. We made my family made these shirts. So this design was made by my wife, and she actually made this design. And right now, this is what we have available. And so if you would like one of these sweatshirts, go to the website at bosterms.com, and you can order one. And I will let her know that you want a hoodie. But right now, I don't think that we have any hoodies. But it's not a bad idea, Ernie. Thank you for bringing it up. So if it comes up, should I cancel? So someone's asking about canceling their infusion. And again, I can't answer your question specifically. I can't tell you the right answer without seeing you, examining you, talking to you, looking at your MRIs, looking at your labs. And so I really want to stress the importance of talking to your doctor. I also want to stress the importance of not panicking. Right? So this is a scary time. Let's be honest with each other. It's a scary time when you can't go to the gym because it's closed, and you can't go to the bar on St. Patrick's Day because it's closed, and you can't take your family out to eat because the restaurant's closed, and you can't go to college because college is closed. I get it, but there's a reason, and we are a community, and there's 173 of us that have been online for 45 minutes, and this global online village supports each other. You guys support me in ways that you don't even understand. And it's my hope that bringing us together is a positive thing. And we're going to get through this. We are. We're going to get through this just the same way that we've gotten through so many hurdles in our lives. Many people that are listening right now have been impacted by MS. Either they have multiple sclerosis, or their family member has multiple sclerosis, or they work in a setting where they help take care of people with multiple sclerosis. And that's a thing also. And gosh darn it, if you're not thriving despite it. And this is a village of people that are fighters. And this current hurdle is no different. We're going to get through this together. And I'm appreciative of all of you globally out there supporting me. And I want you to know that I love you right back, and that we're supporting each other. So this is not airy-fairy words. This is real stuff. And we're going to get through this the same way that you've gotten through so many hurdles in your life. That's a fact. What other questions are cooking right now? Does 20 plus brain lesions and 4 spine lesions, but first relapse at age 31? Let's see here. Basically, no symptoms mean to me that it's not aggressive. My neurologist says that I've had MS for many years. So Spencer's asking a question where he hasn't had a lot of symptoms, but he's got a lot of brain lesions. To me, a spot on your brain is like a clinical attack, right? They're very, very similar. I'm going to sneeze. Woo! Now, not only did I just sneeze, but I don't have a Kleenex and I can't wash my hands. But I'll tell you, there's no one within 6 feet of me. And I promise you that when I get off the interwebs, I'm going to clean my hands. Oh, I've got a family member running to my rescue. Dun, dun, dun. Check it out, yo. Thank you very much. I've got some Purell. So let's do it up. I'm going to practice what I preach. And after sneezing, I'm going to wash my hands. Wash my hands. I'm actually disinfecting my hands, but this is the jam. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So we've got some clean hands. Thank goodness gracious. All right. Let's look for another question. I know. Angela says, where's your tissue? I apologize. I prepared for the live stream by getting apple juice, by getting my grog cup, and I didn't bring a single tissue, and I'm sorry for that. Sherry says, bless you. Thank you very much. And Diane says, just Purell. How come it spread so fast to Italy while it originated in China? Linda asks, why did COVID-19 kind of go across the entire earth? And this has everything to do, in my opinion, with airplanes. People travel. Last month, I was in, I'm not joking, probably like 15 or 20 cities, all in the United States. But I traveled a great deal. I was in cities in Tennessee I've never been in before, Johnston City, Tennessee. I was all up and down the East Coast. I was on the West Coast last month. I did a lot of traveling last month. And people travel in airplanes. And this COVID-19 virus has a couple things about it that are unfortunate. For example, there's an incubation period. So you get infected and you have the virus, and you can shed the virus, so you can cough on a surface and infect it, but you don't feel sick yet. In fact, you don't even know that you're sick. You don't have a temperature, you don't have shortness of breath, you don't have a cough, but you can spread the virus. And the incubation period is between 2 and 14 days, which means you could run around for 14 days in giving people virus and not know it. And that's something about COVID-19, which is a little bit different. You guys remember several years back, I think 2003-ish, we had the SARS epidemic. And COVID-19 is actually very similar to SARS. And SARS, the only people that spread virus were the people that were sick. So if you're coughing a lot, then you're spreading virus. But asymptomatic people didn't spread virus. COVID-19, they do. The other thing about COVID-19 is that it can last on surfaces for a while. So if you cough and spread virus onto your laptop, it'll stay there for on the order of not hours, but days. It can stay alive. And so these are reasons why it was spread. And honestly, we heard about it in China. It was going on in Japan and Korea. We heard about it in Italy and in Iran. But if you look at the maps, it wasn't like just those places. It was in other places also. And it may have been in the United States before we realized it. We don't have a lot of testing kits in the United States. It's very hard to get a hold of testing kits. And so we don't exactly know the number of people that have been infected. I want to talk for a second, because we're really having a conversation about COVID-19 tonight. I want to talk about the concept of flattening the curve. So hashtag, let me write this down. Hashtag flatten the curve. And this is a really, really important concept. One of the biggest issues that we saw in China was that so many people got infected so quickly, it overwhelmed resources for healthcare. So there's only so many hospitals. There's only so many doctors and nurses. And one of the major problems with COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan, China, was that it overwhelmed the healthcare resources. We can't avoid COVID-19 in the United States. It's here, right? But we can flatten the curve. What I mean by that is the curve, the amount of people that get the virus and then get better. That's the curve. So way up and then way down. And what you want to do by flattening the curve is you want a slow, small curve. If we can distance ourselves, social distancing, wash your hands, sneeze into a Kleenex, or if you don't have a Kleenex, then quickly Purell afterwards. If you can disinfect surfaces, you can limit or slow down the transmission of the virus. And by slowing down the transmission of the virus, less people will become infected. And the resources that are currently available for healthcare will be adequate to manage that smaller number of people. So you not going to work sick does more than just help out the people at your factory. It also helps out your greater community, the state, the country that you live in, and it helps keep people not so sick so that healthcare resources are not overwhelmed. That's a major thing. And so if you are on social media, I want you to send out a flatten the curve hashtag flatten the curve. That's a really, really important concept. Very, very important. All right, let's take a look at some more questions here. What else is cooking? Are there any more questions? They should have tossed the Purell from 6 feet away. So Michelle Hotchkiss says that my family should have thrown this to me from across the room. That's probably a good idea. All right. One video I remember seeing before was explaining the testing your patients go through at each visit. I thought the process was amazing. Could you please review that again? So Must Stop MS is asking a really great MS question. And I would love to share with you sort of what goes on when we see someone. And why don't, just for the sake of discussion, I use the person that I saw in clinic today. So the person came into clinic and we had them fill out several forms. They filled out a fatigue severity scale, which measures how tired they are. Now, this is a validated measure to assess fatigue in MS. They also filled out a PHQ-9, which is a 9-question, I gotta get 9 fingers out, a 9-question quiz that looks at depression, right? So those were 2 patient-reported outcome measures that we asked the patient to fill out before they came in. And they filled that out in the lobby, and then I looked at the results. And then when they got into the testing room, they did several functional tests. They did a high contrast visual acuity, like a Snellen chart, like the E that you read, and they did that chart. And then they did a low contrast visual acuity. Low contrast visual acuity is a more sensitive eyeball test than high contrast visual acuity. So they did 2 eye tests. Then they did what's called a 9-hole peg test, where we had under a stopwatch, they had to take 9 pegs into a pegboard and then 9 pegs out of a pegboard. And we did it for time, for the fastest time with their left hand, the fastest time with the right hand. And that is a validated measure to measure upper extremity function. I love the 9-hole peg test. It's not specific. It doesn't tell you if your arm's numb, weak, or clumsy, but if your time is slow, it tells you that something's wrong. And so we did this upper extremity function test called the 9-hole peg test. Then we did a symbol digit modality test. This is a 90-second cognitive test. It's a quiz. It's a matching quiz, and it's exquisitely sensitive to pick up abnormalities with cognition and MS. And so we did this cognitive test, this 9-hole peg test. Then we did a timed 25-foot walk, where we had the patient walk down the hallway as fast as possible safely for 25 feet. And we measured the speed. And we looked at all of these tests together. So before I examined them, and before I even talked to them, I had a fatigue scale, a depression scale, a vision test, a arm test, a leg test, and a thinking test. And that was the standard intake that we'll use at our center when we onboard someone for that clinic day. Now, of course, we also spend an hour with the patient in the clinic room, 1 hour. And during that hour, we talk to them about how they're doing and about how they're thriving and about problems with life and about their medicine, et cetera, et cetera. And then we also do a full physical examination. So we have them do the testing and we have them look the finger and touch this and touch this. But that pre-testing really sensitizes us to what's going on with the patient. And I feel that it's a really, really important step. Randy with Must Stop MS, thank you for asking that question. I really appreciate it. Now I've got a question here from, this is not a question, it's a discussion from MS of the 11th percentile. Any of you that are watching right now, if you haven't checked out MS in the 11th percentile's YouTube channel, you should totally check her out because she's got an awesome YouTube channel with an awesome story to share. Really good stuff. So here's a question from Sweet Jamie Lee. Sweet Jamie Lee asks, am I wrong for being a tad irritated by people who don't get a flu shot? Seems good for MSers. And thank you for your videos. Well, Sweet Jamie Lee, you're welcome. These videos have become part of my life. I really, really enjoy making YouTube educational videos, and I really love hearing that you like them. So you're welcome. Is it reasonable to be irritated with people for not getting a flu shot? In my opinion, yes. I think it's reasonable. Now, the flu shot helps protect you against influenza. But the way that immunizations work or vaccines work is it requires something called herd immunity. So if one person out of 100 gets a flu shot, it doesn't really help very much. But if 99 people out of 100 get a flu shot and one person gets the flu, they can't spread it anywhere because when the flu hits a host that's immunized, the host clears the infection. And so you don't just take a flu shot so that you don't get the flu. You take a flu shot so that you don't spread the flu through the community. Right now, there are brilliant researchers around the globe, all over the world, working to try to come up with a flu shot for coronavirus 19. They are desperately working around the clock to come up with a vaccine to protect against COVID-19. And if it's available, I'm taking it. And I'm going to ask my wife to take it. And I'm going to ask my children to take it. And I'm probably going to ask my patients and the folks that I work with and my team to take it. Because we want to protect ourselves against COVID-19, but also we want to protect our community. We don't want to allow COVID-19 to infect us and then infect other people. So I think that it is reasonable to be a little bit irritated with people that turn down taking the flu shot. And as a general rule, people impacted by MS should take the flu shot. Now, of course, there are certain caveats with various medicines that you have to pay attention to, but I think it's really helpful. Now, Linda White says, I want to purchase a sweatshirt. So thank you. I would love for you to purchase a sweatshirt. Go to our website. It's bosterms.com and click the tab for support. And then you can purchase one of these sweatshirts, and my family will make the sweatshirt and we'll package the sweatshirt and we'll send it off to you. And we would be happy to do that. All right, guys. It is St. Patrick's Day. Now, traditionally on the weekend of St. Patrick's Day, my family goes to Chicago and we make a weekend out of it. We go and see a show and stay at an amazing hotel. and we like to watch the river turn green. This year, we're in quarantine, and we're going to spend the time safely at home. And I want to thank all of you for helping make St. Patrick's Day a little bit better for me by getting online together, by amassing this global, growing online community where we support each other. As always, I want to thank you for supporting each other. It means the world to me. So until the next time that I see you on one of these live streams, or the next time I see you on one of my videos, or if I'm lucky enough to see you in clinic, until then, my name is Aaron Boster, and take care. Have a great night. Be safe. Enjoy St. Patrick's Day responsibly. And remember the things that we talked about to protect yourself and your family from COVID-19. God bless.